separates the observer from the observed. It's the measurement of experience. You learn a lot about it in the book, but you can shift how you experience time internally. You know, as somebody says, the beauty of the mountain was breathtaking, time stood still. Or, well, you fell in love, time didn't exist. So when you metabolize, there's a part of you that is timeless. Okay, so right now, in fact, as you're listening to me, turn your attention to who's listening. So as you're listening to me, be aware of who's listening. If you feel a still presence, that's your soul. It's not your mind which might be saying, I wish I'd gone to the bathroom before the lecture or whatever. You know, your mind is a conversation that happens in that awareness. And that awareness is timeless. It was there when you were a baby. You know, different body, different mind, different emotions, but that presence was there. So everything comes and goes, but it comes and goes in that presence. And once again, the great wisdom tradition said, hold on to that. That's the only part of you that's real. The rest, as the Buddha said, is a phantom, a dream. It comes and goes. Okay, so that's the third breakthrough. You can change your experience of time. The fourth breakthrough I've already mentioned, you can change the expression of your genes, just like you can change your brain. And the fifth breakthrough is you can always use your awareness to do this, because awareness is the key. The quality of your attention and the qualities of your intention. Now, I've tried to say a lot in a short time, but you'll find lots of interesting exercises to do this. Because when I say reinvent your body, I mean it literally. Okay? I'm doing it. I'm 63 today, by the way. Okay? Yeah. And I'm reinventing my body, and I'm inviting you to do the same. Okay? So you cannot do it, though, other than being in touch with your soul, with your core consciousness. And just like there are 5 breakthroughs in the book about the body, there are 5 breakthroughs about the soul. How much time do we have? Almost done? Okay. So the 5 breakthroughs of the soul is, when you're in touch with this core consciousness, then your life is, first breakthrough is one of effortless spontaneity. Which means you should wake up every day and ask yourself only 3 questions. Is it fun? Is it easy? Am I getting results? And if you can't say yes to all 3, then you're not in touch with your soul, period. The second breakthrough of the soul is that when you are in touch with your soul, you spontaneously feel joy, love, compassion, kind, because you're connected to all of life. It's not an effort, it's who you are. The third breakthrough of the soul is that you have access to unlimited imagination and creativity. Because in the discontinuity is the field of infinite possibilities. The fourth breakthrough of the soul is you experience what religious traditions call the state of grace, or in modern psychological terms, synchronicity, meaningful coincidences. And the fifth breakthrough of the soul, or the core consciousness, is that you recognize what the power of intention is, what we in India and the ancient traditions call sankalp, subtle action, subtle intention, and you choose evolution over entropy. So these are the 5 breakthroughs of the soul, and then you'll go, in the last part of the book are the 10 steps to do this. And even though these are ancient practices, I've done my best to make this understandable to everybody in modern times, because some of the terminologies of ancient wisdom traditions they seem esoteric, they seem metaphysical, they seem quote unquote a little foreign to us. So I've done my best to explain this in modern contemporary scientific language, and I've tried to base everything I said in the book on valid science. So thank you very much.
I have loads of questions from everyone. Happy birthday, first of all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Now remember, when I said I'm 63, that's chronologically, not biologically, right? Biologically, I'm still 17. And psychologically, I'm still deciding what I'll do when I grow up.
Okay, the first question from a very special friend is love as humans experience it eternal or temporal, a product of evolution that helps us thrive as a species?
It's all of the above. Love is the most important experience a human being can have. But love has different flavors. There's romantic love, there's love of your children, there's love of your siblings, there's love of your parents, there's love of art, music, sex, there's love of God. So love has many flavors. The great Indian poet Tagore said, love is not a mere sentiment, it's the ultimate truth at the heart of creation. So every experience of love is valid. And, well, I could talk about this for a week, but it's also part of our evolution. It's a survival mechanism. When you have the experience of love, your biological responses begin to self-regulate. So there's a phenomenon called limbic resonance that happens when people who have emotional bonds. And limbic resonance restores homeostasis, which means self-regulation. The most important experience a person can have when they are healing is the experience of love. It's an expression of your soul, including romantic love. It's an act of the soul. Your neurons don't fall in love, you do.
There's hope for us all. We're in a time of immense change and upheaval. What is the best process for getting through the chaos into our soul and staying there?
It's an important question because people, always think, oh, now there's an economic, whatever disaster, there's global warming, there's war, terrorism, there's social injustice, there's radical poverty. All these are actually the expressions of our not being in touch with ourselves. Okay. If you are in touch with yourself, and if there was a critical mass of consciousness that were in touch with themselves, all of that would change because we have actually caused these problems. And if you want to contribute to change, then in the words of Mahatma Gandhi, you have to be that change. Okay, you want peace in the world, start with yourself. Okay, you want to get rid of poverty in the world, make somebody that you know, help them, in their life. Take on one project that's not motivated by profit.
You're seen as a spiritual guide and philosopher by many. Whom would you consider your spiritual guides or favorite philosophers?
In recent times, J. Krishnamurti, the Indian philosopher and Indian teacher. And before him, people like Rabindranath Tagore, Vivekananda, Yogananda, and before that, the sages of the Upanishads, the Greek philosophers, the Chinese philosophers, Lao Tzu, and of course the great prophets of humanity from Jesus Christ to Buddha to Muhammad.
Positive thinking creates positive attitude which spreads happiness and success. But consciousness leading to cause or cure of physical illness, how does that work?
Okay, first of all, please get rid of the notion that positive thinking is a good thing, okay? It's the most stressful thing you can do. Yeah? Have you ever been around somebody who's always exasperatingly positive? You have to be natural. And when you are in touch with the natural part of yourself that accepts the positive and negative traits that you have, because everybody has positive and negative traits. To have negative traits is not to be flawed, it's to be complete. We have the sacred and the profane inside us. We have the sinner and the saint inside us. We have forbidden lust inside us. We have unconditional love. If you can accept that in yourself, you'll accept it in others. And when you do that, and you stop being judgmental, you'll find silence. And when you find silence, you'll find creativity, insight, you'll be in touch with your soul, and that's when healing occurs. So positive thinking is so exaggerated. Be natural. There's nothing more attractive than somebody who radiates a simple, unaffected humanity. Like children.
We are here this evening with best-selling author Deepak Chopra. We have a question about Michael Jackson, since a lot of people know that you were good friends. Can you please talk about Michael Jackson's soul and what it's likely to be experiencing from the point of death until the present?
This is a very, very complicated question. You know, what happens after death? I've written a whole book on it. It's called Life After Death. So you'll have to study that. But just remember that there is no such thing as a permanent personal identity. You are not the same person you were 10 years ago. You have a different mind, you have a different personality, hopefully, that you're growing, okay? You have different emotional state. You had, when you were 2 years old, you were a different person. So, you know, what we call a person, there's no such thing as a person. There's a soul that is on a continuum of transformation. And that transformation occurs right now. You do not survive as a static entity in life. So why would you survive after death as a static entity? The soul's journey through cosmic time is one of evolution. So think of that principle when you think of a person like Michael Jackson or whoever. Michael Jackson, when he was alive, was in your consciousness. When he's dead, he's in your consciousness also. Now, it's more complicated than that.
Do you, Deepak, use over-the-counter medicines or prescription medications, or do you use purely alternative therapies, subtle action?
I don't use either because I don't get sick. I'm being honest. So I don't use. But, you know, I think you should know that 80% of prescription drugs are of optional or marginal benefit. So that means if you didn't use them, it wouldn't make a bit of a difference to the natural history of your disease. If you have one, it would save you money and side effects. Have you ever watched a commercial for minor drugs on television? You know, you can take this for your dyspepsia, but be careful, it can lead to anything from impotence to death. Okay? It's 80%. Now, you know, we have this huge debate on healthcare reform. It's not about healthcare reform, it's about insurance reform, which is necessary too. But we're not talking about healthcare reform. You want really healthcare reform? Look at 2.5 million surgeries that are done which are not indicated. $700 billion of lab tests that are not indicated. Why do you think there are 4 times as many lobbyists in Washington on healthcare than there are congressmen in Washington? You know, we spend $2.4 trillion a year on healthcare. We don't even rank in the first 30 in the world in healthcare. There's a lot of wastage in healthcare. And much of what is being talked about end-of-life care is end-of-life suffering. We prolong end-of-life suffering. We do not prolong end-of-life life. So if you want to get really true healthcare reform, look at 80% of the diseases that are preventable. You know, 80 to 90% of your healthcare dollars go into diseases that are preventable. So we're not even close to really good healthcare.
I have a couple of questions on dreaming. What is the purpose of dreaming, and what does a bad dream indicate?
Dreams are actually a mechanism to release stress. What happens is that during whatever memories we have, whatever choices we've made, thoughts, you know, this is part of your soul's software. There's a story of the Buddha standing on the streets of Benares, and India was crowded even then. They're waiting for the traffic to clear. And Ananda says to Buddha, "Can you explain life to me?" And Buddha says, "Look at that wheel of a chariot that's passing by right at that moment. It's karma, memory, and desire." So karma is past experiences which create memory, which create desires. And every thought that you have is either a memory or a desire. and it comes from your soul. And the same thing happens at night, except it's all jumbled up, so we call it a dream. And if you stop the process of dreaming, then what happens, if you take, say, heavy amounts of alcohol,